The action returns to the Bellator cage Friday night on Showtime with an exciting flyweight title fight. The champion, Juliana Velasquez, was dominant en route to her first title shot. When she took on longtime champion Ilima-Lei McFarland for the belt, she was ready.
And now the new Bellator flyweight world champion, Juliana Velasquez.
Now the undefeated champ will make her first title defense against Denise Kielholtz, a decorated kickboxer who's riding a 4-fight win streak in the Bellator cage, all coming via finish.
You put them down in their rock, their ability to defend themselves. There it is, she's in trouble. This fight's over.
It's all over! Denise Kielholtz knocks out Kate Jackson!
Will Kielholtz bring the belt back home to the Netherlands, or will it stay in Rio de Janeiro with Velasquez? We're in for a good one Friday night, only on Showtime.
Bellator returns to Showtime this Friday night, headlined by the Women's World Flyweight Championship between Juliana Velasquez and Denise Kielholtz. We'll have the challenger for an interview after the weigh-ins, and there's a change to the main card. Leighton Vassell, Marcelo Golm fight canceled due to injury, so the Mateus Matos and CJ Hamilton bout has been promoted from the prelims. And with that, we say what's good, streaming people. Tommy Tran here at CBS Sports HQ alongside the Hall of Famer Rashad Evans and the guys from Morning Combat, Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. Shout out to the guys catching us on their YouTube page. So guys, we're getting ready for Bellator 262. Velasquez and Kielholtz. Rashad, I'll start with you. What are you looking out for?
I mean, Velasquez looked amazing in the last fight against Lena McFarland, the way that she was able to control the distance, but more importantly, be surgical with that left hand. I mean, I look for her in this fight to be the bigger fighter, trying to bully Denise Kielholtz a little bit, but Kielholtz had a lot of power in that big hit in both of her hands, and great grappling as well, too. So this is going to be a good one, but I look for action-packed fight start to finish.
All right, let's go Luke, then BC.
Yeah, I agree with Rashad's assessment. This is actually a really great fight. I got to tell you, Juliana Velasquez, it's kind of funny. You know, if you look at Kielholtz and Velasquez, they actually both started at high-level judo. The stories are a little bit different about what the paths they took. Kielholtz making a much bigger name for herself in kickboxing. In fact, she still, I think, stands as the Bellator kickboxing women's flyweight champion. And in the case of Velasquez, she went into MMA after having some of her judo ambitions not fully realized, but she's a devastating puncher, very well-rounded as well. This should be a really fun fight. I favor Velasquez, but this one should bring a ton of action.
Yeah, look, Kielholtz riding such a hot streak. It's the 4 wins, all by finish. But I think even more, if you listen to her interview, she's coming into her own now as a full-fledged mixed martial artist, having been a judoka, a decorated kickboxing champion. She's now getting the ground time put in with top sparring partners in training camp to really feel confident in having a complete game. And I think if you're looking at what's the difference between the two, this is already staged to be an excellent battle on the feet. But don't discount Kielholtz's ability to use that judo background. She's very good at getting trip takedowns. And even though the champion Velasquez is very credible on the ground, she won't be underwater there. She has shown throughout her Bellator run that she can be taken down. If you can disguise the takedown and really look to surprise her, that could end up being key should this one go the full 25 minutes.
Let me go back to Luke. You mentioned sort of the stylistically potential that we might see between these two fighters. Do we know, because we know that Kielholtz obviously is linked to the kickboxing and to your point, can hold both belts for the victory on Friday night. But when you have a situation where they both know each other, they would know that they could both do judo type stuff or stand up and do the kickboxing. What do you anticipate we'll see Friday night?
Yeah, maybe early on there's going to be some feeling out. These are experienced competitors, and certainly at this point I would say experienced fighters as well, a little bit less so on the MMA side for Kielholtz, but again, competitive, combative experience. She's got a ton. So I think they'll probably be leery of that early, but I think once it gets going, it's going to stay that way. I mean, look, judo is a very intense martial art. Obviously, you see a lot of women, Kayla Harrison, Ronda Rousey, and now these two competitors coming out of it. It's a lot about action, gripping, throwing, getting to it right away. Remember, Ronda Rousey would charge across the octagon. Obviously, you don't want to overstate things, but then you look at their kickboxing styles, and these are not people who are patient jabbers from the outside. These are people who are looking to land devastating strikes as best they can find them. So, you know, maybe early on they'll be testing things out and being cerebral, but honestly, by the second round on, big punch is going to land, big takedown is going to land, and I think the action will sort of swell from there. All
right, we will continue this conversation on the main event, but guys, we're getting ready to send it out to Mohegan Sun Arena for the live weigh-ins. Again, Bellator 262 here on CBS Sports HQ. I want to tell you again a little bit about the main card that is headlined by the flyweight world title between Juliana Velasquez and Denise Kielholtz. Again, you have a champ that is undefeated against a challenger, the kickboxing flyweight world title, to have the opportunity to make history, becoming the first fighter to hold both Bellator MMA and Bellator kickboxing world championships simultaneously. Rashad, I do want to ask you about the heavyweight bout, Tyrell Fortune and Matt Mitrione. What are you looking out for in the co-main?
Well, I mean, Matt Mitrione, you know, he's on a skid right now. He's kind of upset going into this fight, you know, feeling a little bit disrespected. But, you know, he's got to keep it light. You know, he's got to not overcommit on his punches, just touch, because Tyrone Fortune has the ability to take him down. And we all know Matt Mitrione has holes on the ground, so Tyrone Fortune is going to look to try to exploit that.
What about Tough? What do you remember about that, the Ultimate Fighter?
Oh, man, the meathead. I mean, you know, me and Matt Mitrione go back so far, you know, and, you know, I talked to him before this fight, and he said, you know, Rashad, listen, I'm putting everything into this fight, and, you know, I'm super focused, and this is where I need to be, because right now I'm feeling as if like I'm very, very disrespected right now, and people forgot who Matt Mitrione is. And I'm like, hey, remember how we used to do it in Tough, baby? You got to dig deep, and you got to find a way to get it done at all odds.
Trying to reverse his 3 out of 4 losses with a recent record here. BC, quick thoughts on this one?
Look, everything that Rashad said is on point. This is 4 straight fights in which Mitrione did not get his hand raised, hasn't had a win since 2018. But even though he's 43 years old, he has such a interesting sort of sneaky style on the feet that age really hasn't been the problem. Maybe focus has been, this is a very tough fight against a very hungry Fortune who comes in there, of course, with the wrestling background, decorated Division II national champion, but has really improved his hands as a knockout threat. I look for this fight to take place on the feet as long as it can, but look for the takedowns here. If things go Mitrione's way early, this is a very interesting test, a must win for the old meathead, who, let's not forget, not that long ago, once knocked out the great Fedor Emelianenko in Madison Square Garden. He's looking to get back to that surge once again.
And we know Fedor is going to be back in Moscow, not too distant future. Luke, this fight, though, in the heavyweight, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the assessments you've heard thus far are correct. Matt Mitrione, 43. That is a little bit – I mean, you have to understand something. Heavyweight is definitely the friendliest division to older fighters, so that's the good news. But the bad news is at 43 – even that is beginning to push it. Plus, you add in the fact that these guys have both, or excuse me, that Mitrione's riding a losing skid. It's not a great time. The one thing I would say is their commonality here, both having lost to Timothy Johnson. This is a chance to sort of get back, obviously, on the win column, but maybe get a chance down the line to get another fight with him. Tyrell Fortune, just 31 years of age. The winds of time, so to speak, favor him a little bit.
All right, our thanks to Luke Thomas, Brian Campbell. Those guys are going to be joining us again in just a little bit, but I'm Tommy Train here with Rashad Evans, getting you ready for the live weigh-ins Bellator 262. Let's first tell you about the prelims that will be happening there on the YouTube page, Showtime Sports YouTube channel, and Pluto TV. You see the bouts that are there below. The preliminary matchup between Longo and Weidman product Charlie Campbell and Connecticut's Nick Giulietti has been added to this card. So that is the prelims happening at 6:30 Eastern, with the main card happening at 9 Eastern on Showtime. Velasquez, Kielholtz, 6-1 record for the challenger, currently riding a 4-fight win streak, winning twice by knockout and 3 times by submission, despite that striking background. We'll be talking about that. Let's go to Michael C. Williams in just a second here, but Rashad, when we take a look at this card, what stands out to you?
I mean, you know, just the Matt Mitrione and Tyrone Fortune. I mean, I've trained with Tyrone Fortune as well too. You know, Tyrone Fortune came down to help me when I trained with DC, and you know, at that time he was very novice in his career, so he didn't really know too much. He just knew the wrestling, but now he's grown so much into such a great fighter. But I mean, I'm looking for great things in this fight and great things for him. So I'm excited for this whole card.
You see the odds there from William Hill that has Fortune more than 3-1 is what you'd have to lay down to win that fight. If you like Mitrione, you can get plus money at plus 270. Back to the main event. I talked a lot about the challenger, of course, but we were all here talking about the fight with Velasquez and Ilima-Lei Macfarlane this past December. A career record now to 11-0 with 6 wins in the Bellator cage, and that loss was the first one of McFarlane's career. We are now ready, I'm told. Michael C. Williams, Mohegan Sun Arena, Uncasville, Connecticut, with the live weigh-ins, Bellator 262.
Where warriors rule.
And that was the Bellator 262 weigh-ins right here on CBS Sports HQ. Rashad, we were watching the main event with Velasquez and Kielholtz, the face-off. What did you see? What did you think?
Oh, intensity. I seen a promise for tomorrow that is going to be a great fight. I mean, just that intensity. Like, she's coming in here. Kielholtz is not as a challenger. She's looking as, you know what, this is my belt. I'm going to take this belt. And, you know, the champion is looking back like, oh, not today. But you felt that intensity. It had to be separated, you know. That's good.
We were talking about the challenger, too. I mentioned that we were, back in December, part of the Ilima-Lei McFarlane and Juliana Velasquez fight. What do you remember about that fight in terms of how she's progressed here and become a champion?
Well, Velasquez did such a great job in that fight of controlling the distance, and because she was able to control the distance and put pressure forward, she was able to land that left hand very surgically, you know, almost like Conor McGregor-esque, you know, because the way she was spread out, and she's a big fighter at 5'7", but she is spread out really big with a nice wide base, and it leaves her opponents to feel as if like, okay, she's closer than what she really is, and then they commit to a punch, and then she slides out, and then comes with the counter strike. She was very good at that, but not only good at that, she was very good at answering the call of grappling too. When it was on the cage, she was tough on the cage. When it was on the ground, she was tough on the ground. So she showed that she's well-rounded, and she showed that she's a real deal.
We're just minutes or perhaps even seconds away from the challenger. Denise Kielholtz joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Once she gets off the stage, gets the headset, she'll be joining us from Mohegan Sun Arena. We'll also be having Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell back with us in a second, too. The odds here from William Hill has the champion laying 4-1. That's a pretty big number, not ginormous that we've seen before with like a Nunez or Cyborg and such like that. But what do you think about the odds?
I think the odds are a bit wrong because I got Kielholtz in this one. I do. I think that, you know, when it comes down to the power, I think that she packs a pretty good punch. And being the shorter fighter, you know, she's going to have Velasquez really try to push the pace on her like she normally does. And sometimes when you push the pace and try to get back down a smaller fighter, those are the punches you don't see coming because they come from underneath. And that's what Velasquez is going to have to watch. But, you know, the kind of power that Kielholtz has in her hands, it's that old Dutch kickboxing style. They fight different over in Holland. Over in Holland, it's a different kind of stand-up over there. So I really like Denise in this one, and I think the odds maker have them wrong.
It'll be interesting because Denise coming off a fight less than a minute, so she's pretty fresh, obviously, coming out there. One more question on the other side for Velasquez. She wants to fight one more time this calendar year because of what she had, obviously, back in December. What do you think about the timetable for her to do that?
I think it's a great time. You know, you have a good fight in here this time, and then, you know, get yourself healed up, providing there's no injuries. You know, it all depends on how this fight goes. If she has a war in this one, it will really, it could set her back. But I like an active champion because an active champion is a champion that's pulling away from the rest of the pack.
We've got Miss Dynamite joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Denise Kielholtz standing by. It's Tommy Tran and Rashad Evans. We were just talking about this epic matchup that you have coming up on Friday night. Give me your mindset heading into tomorrow night.
Feeling really good. Everything just like the plan. My fight camp was perfect. I worked really hard, harder than normal, and I knew that tomorrow I can make history. That's what makes everything more special, and I enjoy every second more than before. So really happy to be here.
That stare down was intense. What was behind that? Is there a little trash talking, or you just wanted to let her know out the gate that tomorrow was she's going to be in for one?
That was just the feeling at that moment, you know. It's just like the intense feeling of, okay, we're going to get down tomorrow, you know. And that was just not the plan. That was just the moment, and we were there and we stared at each other, and I think we can feel our energy together. So I just know that after this, for 100% tomorrow will be fire.
Now you have a decorated kickboxing career. I believe it's 44-3, and you're only 6-2 in MMA. Going in here with these women that are 11-0, like your opponent, do you feel like they have that much more experience than you, or have you feel like you've kind of closed the distance with MMA?
Well, I don't like to compare the past with the future, and I have a really big record in my kickboxing fights, and some of the girls here, they have more experience in the cage, but I see fighting as fighting and fighting at that moment, and the person that I face there is just a person at that moment and not the past or the future, but at that moment. So I don't compare like records or the past or something that she did or that I did. I just compare compare the moment that we are there in that cage this Friday. So, yeah, the record doesn't mean anything to me.
So you say record doesn't mean anything to you. Before we let you go, though, Denise, since your loss to Vidia Ortega, you're on a 4-fight win streak. Have you discovered something along the way that will help you prepare yourself for this championship fight?
I think after that fight, you know, against Vetter, that was really a big lesson for me, because after that fight, I just make myself develop more as an MMA fighter and let all the past from the kickboxing part, I let it go. I just say goodbye to everything that it's in connected with kickboxing, and I developed myself more with my head coach Bob Schrijver as an MMA fighter, and now I feel more complete also on the ground, but also in my stand-up game. Everything is different because now I can say that I'm officially an MMA fighter.
Denise, certainly appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us here on CBS Sports HQ, and good luck tomorrow night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Denise Kielholtz, the challenger in this title fight against Juliana Velasquez. You see the odds in the tail of the tape. They headline Bellator 262 tomorrow night, 9 Eastern on Showtime. So we're talking picks now, and Rashad already gave his selection. He thinks Kielholtz a live dog at more than 3-1, and I got to tell you, Rashad has been on a heater 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 straight that we've done these things with Morning Combat guys. So now I'll send it back out to Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. BC, I'll give you first word. Who do you think wins this main card fight?
There's a lot of pressure on me following Mystic Shad, as they call him here in CBS Sports HQ land. I do agree with him from one thing. I think the odds are wider at this point because as good as Juliana Velasquez has shown, and certainly in winning the title from a decorated, experienced champion, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, she's got to defend it first. And the more tape you watch on these two fighters, the more you realize how much Denise Kielholtz is peaking at the exact right time. We've already talked about her, taking her past and melding it together, the judoka background, the kickboxing, and now what she's learning specifically on the ground. She's been very impressive in this 4-fight win streak, getting all finishes, but particularly 2 on the submission game on the ground, which I think was an area a lot of us didn't necessarily see coming from her when she really made this push up the Bellator ladder. I think she's certainly going to have a chance. You saw the height difference in that stare down. I think you also saw Juliana Velasquez, who physically you could see the little bit of a stress in making that 125 weight cut, or at least it looks so. I think ultimately the difference for Kielholtz to be even more explosive than just, let's say, a live dog, to have a chance to win this, is she's got to get the champ Velasquez off of her script, off of her plan A, because what Velasquez does so great is keeping the fight at distance and chipping away with those hard left crosses. When you can get her off of that, when you can close distance, create a little bit of chaos, you sometimes can see the champ back up in a straight line, do some things that you wouldn't say are the most orthodox in reaction to. For Denise Kielholtz to close these odds and be a winner, she's going to have to be wild in there and use all facets of her game.
Yeah, I'm going to agree more with Brian. Now, certainly I'm in no position to challenge Mystic Shad, but I can only look at the facts as they're presented to me. And I do take seriously Denise Kielholtz's opportunity to win here. I actually think she's a bit of a better athlete, but a quicker athlete, which could prove very, very important in the course of this fight. However, here's the big difference for me. Juliana Velasquez has just fought and defeated much better competition. There's really no 2 ways about it. In fact, it's not even very close. Alejandra Lara, she beat. Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, she beat. And in those 2 fights, yeah, the Lara fight was a little bit close, but then you add in the Bruna Ellen fight. Like, she's just done better work against better opponents. So I do take seriously, very seriously, Denise Kielholtz as a threat. And I also think that some of the things Rashad has said about, now her game has been melding into a much more MMA-centric kind of game. All very true, but if past is prologue, and maybe it won't be, but if it is, you've got someone who's just done demonstrably better work at a higher level. That's Juliana Velasquez.
All right, everyone who's offered their thoughts on the main event for Bellator 262. Guys, we're going to wrap things up, but before we do, we got to talk about the next Bellator event, 263, end of the month, about 2 weeks' time. It's going to be the final of the Featherweight World Grand Prix between Pitbull and McKee. Rashad, I'll give you first word here.
I mean, first of all, BC, I want to say great job in the conference call. That conference call got me pumped up. I mean, just the coaches alone going back and forth was a highlight to me. But I seen something when the 2 athletes got on, AJ McKee and Pitbull. I seen AJ get into Pitbull's head a little bit, and him getting into Pitbull's head, it kind of made me think that Pitbull was raising a little bit of doubts. Like, I'm a trash talker. That's what I used to do. And I used to look for that little inch where I seen a guy just kind of back down a little bit. And if I seen it in his eyes, then I knew I had it. When I watched the interview, I seen it in Pitbull's eyes. I seen the look of, like, you know what, a little bit of uncertainty off of what A.J. McKee was saying. And because of that, I like A.J. McKee in this one. It's going to be a good one, though.
Yeah, Rashad was telling me in the green room that he thinks maybe McKee's gotten a little bit into Pitbull's head. We're taking a look at the bracket. What say you, Mr. Moderator Brian Campbell?
Yeah, look, I love the trash talk back and forth. Give me more of that, of course, but the skills are going to pay the bills on fight night, and that's why you love this action. You want my honest analysis, guys? I don't know who's going to win this, and that's what makes it a great fight. That's why you can let's say, competently brand this what it is. The biggest fight in Bellator MMA history. Have there been bigger ones from a commercial standpoint? Certainly. But importance, two guys that were either directly raised in McKee's name under the Bellator banner, or Pitbull, who became a star under the Bellator banner. You have two fighters colliding at the right time. Pitbull's the pound-for-pound #1 under the Bellator promotion, going in there against a guy who, I'm sorry, we just don't know how great he can be. He's done flashes of absolute brilliance in winning his first 17 fights in succession. But A.J. McKee's going to have to go one notch higher against Pitbull. You put on the table here the world title, the finals of the tournament, and $1 million to the winner. I mean, come on, let me lather up for this one in Inglewood on July 31st. I'm ready. I'm not going to give you a pick yet. I got to crunch more tape and video. This thing's too good to be true.
Yeah, we'll give you plenty of time. You mentioned Inglewood. It's at the Forum, and we've loved Mohegan Sun Arena. They've been the staple since the pandemic, but this is moving to the West Coast. Inglewood always up to no good. Luke, I give you final word on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with my colleague Brian Campbell a little bit. It's not the biggest fight in Bellator. I covered Kimbo Slice in his run through Bellator. He was doing over 3 million views on what is now Paramount, but previously Spike. No one else in Bellator's history has ever come close. Okay. No one else in Bellator history has ever come close. What I can say, though, and where I think Brian Campbell is right, is it's maybe one of the most historically significant fights in Bellator history. Maybe, in fact, you had to pick two fighters on the roster to make the best fight that Bellator could make. You could come up with, in fact, these two. Featherweight has always been strong in Bellator. It continues that way. You have the best fighter in Bellator history in Patricio Pitbull against the undefeated only Bellator product in A.J. McKee. It's hard to write fights like this at the end of a tournament. I mean, this is about as good as Bellator can get, and that's pretty high. So I love this fight. I'm like BC. Haven't decided on a pick yet. I see what Rashad is talking about, though. I kind of picked up on that as well. So maybe an upset is cooking, but I got to figure out some more things along the way, too.
Love it. You guys still have time. Certainly appreciate our thanks to the guys from Morning Combat, Luke Thomas, Brian Campbell, and, of course, UFC Hall of Famer Rashad Evans. Again, one more reminder about the prelims happening on Friday on the Showtime YouTube page. You can take a look at it right now. I do want to tell you a couple more fights down the road for Bellator. On August 14th, you got 264, Mousasi and Salter. And then we do know, because recently announced there, of course, Fedor at Bellator Moscow late October. So that's the prelims. And then, of course, the main card at 9 Eastern, Velasquez and Kielholtz. We heard from the challenger getting ready for this fight, coming in as a 3-1 underdog. The money has moved in favor of the champion in just the last day or two. And again, those 5 fights on the main card happen Showtime Friday night at 9 Eastern. And we have to let you know about the guys from MK, Luke Thomas, Brian Campbell, sometimes guest spots from Rashad as well. Download and follow the guys who did a great job out in Vegas last week. They're back, and they're still alive. Good to see them.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.